everyone, and welcome to the third season of Investigative Selfism. My name is Justina. I am the host, the producer, the writer. It's a one-woman show, yes, this podcast, and I'm very excited to have you back. Or if this is your first time discovering this weird-sounding podcast, welcome to Investigative Selfism. Since this is the very first episode of my third season, I wanted to give you an overview of what the general broader topic of it will be and why it's important, why I chose this topic specifically and nothing else. And well, that relates to the previous season that I had, and the topic of the previous season might sound a bit gloomy and not very encouraging and not a fun topic to maybe recommend to someone, but that topic was discomfort. And how do we move through discomfort? How we can reframe it in our head so it's less difficult to navigate it, and how we can give it more meaning, which is in a way that reframing that we sometimes need. And I thought, okay, that's not a very fun, pleasant topic to talk about, but that's why it's important. And what would be the next step then? If we see that, okay, discomfort is something that we live with, we have to normalize it, we have to learn how to go through it, we also then can think of empowerment really as the next step or as the broader concept of what's happening here. And this will be empowerment, the general topic of this very season. But I wanted to explain what I mean by empowerment. I know there are many definitions, and the one I'm going to give you now is not the only one. But for me, when I think of empowerment, I don't think of only, as we like to think about it sometimes, as motivation and being confident all the time and all these really cool, uplifting things, which are all important, and I want to have them too. But I think it's so much more. It's about always the tools, the practices, the habits, right? What we have in our toolbox that allows us to live more fully, to live in a more empowered and not disempowered way. Because disempowered would be the very, very sad opposite, right, of empowered. So it's more about motivation. It's more about confidence. It's about what tools you have when things are tough, right? Do you know that reaching out to someone, for example, is good for you? Do you know that conversation with a friend can really help you maybe even more than anything else when you're feeling sad, right? That's a tool. That knowledge is a tool that you have, you can use when you need it. Or do you know how to prepare yourself to have a difficult conversation at work? That's empowering. Or for me, for example, personally, I need to have a system in place, reminders, right? To stay on the path of choosing kindness and empathy instead of, for example, anger and hate, which is the second, right, is the direction that very often external factors push us to. And I'm like, no, don't forget what the path is, right? The intention. Or another example, talking about empowerment, are there ways that we can adjust our routines using science-backed tools like, neuroscience, for example, or epigenetics, that we can use to have more energy, clarity, and focus in our lives? Like, are we equipped to make these decisions that are actually good for us? And that is very, very broad, and that's why it makes it a very good generic topic of a season of a podcast, of course, because it is so much that we can talk about. And within that universe, I will choose the topics that I myself have found to be more useful for me, and something that, once again, stems not from someone thinking that I think this is a good idea, but from what different disciplines, types of therapy, once again, neuroscience, just like mindfulness, right? Different disciplines and schools of thought, but they tell us what are those tools that we can use to empower ourselves to live a bit more fully, hopefully with less fear and more joy even, maybe. That would be a good outcome, right? So thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing to invest in yourselves, for being on this path of self-knowledge, or as I call it, with this weird name of investigative, not journalism, but investigative selfism. Thank you again, and I'll see you in my upcoming episodes.